Some of my longer term viewers may be wondering what the hell I'm doing, paying for a fuel distributor rebuild. But honestly, I've already done it once on this car 10 years ago. I really can't be bothered doing it again. It's a case of laziness. And I'm curious to see the difference in performance when it's professionally balanced. I'm also going to be fitting a brand new EHA valve at the same time. My original one worked. I'm not going to throw it away. I will keep it as an emergency spare. But being original, I don't know how much life it's got left till inevitably it starts leaking from its weep holes, which is a terminal disease. So I'm going to open this up, fit the EHA valve, and then mosey on out to the car and, I guess, start fitting this. I'm not going to fit the fuel lines today because I want to change the fuel filter and flush the lines out. And I really can't be bothered doing that immediately after coming home from work, so I will leave that for tomorrow. So I really like these red plastic plugs that he uses to seal it up from debris getting inside. I absolutely will be keeping those anytime I store a fuel distributor in the future, or any fuel component that these fit in. They will be getting used. I never think of things like that. I might actually have to find where he gets them from and buy more just to have on hand. So gonna remove this tape and fit the brand new EHA valve. So that's the brand new EHA valve out of its box, and we just got to put these O-rings in. And then the EHA valve, you can see the back side of it there where the ports are. It basically mounts like that with my two new screws. And that's it, it's time to go outside. I'll do that off camera because I don't have three hands. So that is the new EHA valve installed. So I'll just go and fit this to the car. And as mentioned, I'm not going to connect up the fuel lines to it. This one here and this one here, the large ones, will remain plugged because, as mentioned, I want to flush out that filthy fuel line setup. So with the fuel distributor, he also gives you these parts as well. Enough crush washers to reinstall those connections, and also a pair of these O-rings should you wish to reuse your original EHA valve. And given the cost of those things, I would suggest that's very likely you're going to be doing that. I bought these things on special, believe it or not, on eBay for half price several years ago. I bought two of them because I thought, screw it, I will need them one day. I don't really need it now, but since this thing is professionally rebuilt and balanced, I'd like to have the best experience possible and put a brand new EHA valve. So this is the first stages of mounting the fuel distributor. It is basically just bolted down and the injector lines are currently connected. I then moved on to connecting the remainder. I have connected the return line. I figure, what the hell, not really any harm in doing that. I will leave the supply line disconnected because I will flush a few litres of fuel out of that before I connect it to the fuel distributor. That will happen tomorrow when I purchase a jerry can of 20 litres worth of fuel and top the system up. The next thing I did before that stage though is fit the new fuel filter, and this is what I've used. KE-Jetronic is the part number for this version car. That's the size that I had on there. That's not the brand I had before. It was Hengst, I believe. That's the way you say it. Yeah, it's just a case of undoing that clamping screw there. There's nothing on that side that I'm aware of, that I could see anyway. And the lines front and rear from the filter. And then it should slide out. And if required, you can actually loosen the screw on the accumulator as well. and I am going to use new copper crush washers. I don't reuse them anymore, even though most of the time it's perfectly fine. I've got tons of them now, so I don't cut corners anymore. I just fit new ones every time they're disturbed. And that is the new filter installed. It went in quite easily, everything's tightened up, and I'm even going to go ahead and fit the plastic cover. I'm that confident I don't have leaks, hopefully. And tomorrow, when I've got my 20 litres of fuel, I'm going to do the initial setup on that fuel distributor, and well, we'll give it a go. To be honest, I made a mistake with my previous fuel distributor. I may have actually destroyed this engine. I may have bent some connecting rods. We'll see, because it was running on 3 cylinders last time it was running. If that's the case, well, that's the end of the line for this car. So now that I've poured in 20 litres of 95 octane into the tank, I'm going to run the fuel pump using those front 2 pins shorted together at the mass relay sensor. Now I'm going to hold a bottle in front of that outlet there and just flow some out to make sure there's no junk in the lines going into my freshly built fuel distributor. So I've done that now and reconnected up the line. So we're basically ready to go. And just I ran the pump again just to make sure there were no leaks, and everything's looking good. So it's time to move on to the interior, I guess. And before I actually get started on setting this thing up, I want to fix the massive vacuum leak behind the dash, because the vacuum line to the economy gauge actually has popped off. And the other thing, the immobilizer LED had become severed last time I removed the instrument cluster, so I just need to solder that back together, and I will do that and refit the cluster. Yeah, this all happened when I had the dash off and rebuilding the recirc pods for the air conditioning. So that's all done now, and I guess it's time to move on to the dreaded first start and see how it goes. Right, so now's the moment of truth. I'm going to start this car up for the first time with its professionally rebuilt fuel distributor. And then I just have to set the idle mixture with the duty cycle reading and get it around 50%, oscillating around 50% when it's at operating temperature. And this is slightly nerve-wracking for me because I'll be honest with you now. With the fuel distributor that was in this car, I noticed that the piston was crunchy in the upper extent of its range of movement. And I decided to do something lazy, and I just removed that piston and cleaned out the bore and the piston. And I didn't put it back in the correct place, the actual stopper nut at the bottom. And the piston was actually slightly depressed. I didn't put it back exactly where it was, and subsequently the engine was severely flooded. It's like having the airflow meter plate depressed about 2 centimeters, and unknowingly I was cranking the engine. It kind of fired, and I may have actually bent some connecting rods. It's not unknown with KE and K-Jetronic. If you're messing around with a fuel distributor and you flood the engine, you can bend connecting rods. This system can deliver a lot of fuel. Careless on my behalf, but anyway, hopefully it's okay. Hopefully it was just severely flooded, and maybe I blocked up some of the orifices internally when messing around with that piston, but let's see what happens. I'm slightly nervous because this could spell the end of this car, because I really don't have another M104 rebuild in me, because I don't even use the other one, to be honest. That's not a good sign. Okay, I failed to read the instructions that came with the rebuilt fuel distributor. You're not supposed to connect the injector lines
the first thing you do is run the fuel pump and adjust that idle screw till you just start to see fuel rising out of the injector ports, and then you back it off until it stops, and I believe that's where you need to leave it. Maybe back it off 45 degrees, I seem to recall him saying. So if I can't get this to start, I might have to disconnect the injector lines and try doing that. I might get lucky and get it into a position where it will actually run, and then I can do the adjustment with the duty cycle meter. Okay, I've now followed the instructions and set the idle mixture just to the point where the fuel stops flowing out of the ports in the off position. Let's see what happens now. No doubt it's still wrong, but hopefully I can actually get it to run and warm up, because I can't set the duty cycle adjustment without it running and at operating temperature. Well, 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 isn't it funny what happens when you actually RTFM? Now this engine still runs like crap. Seems like it's misfiring because the whole car's shaking around. Maybe it's just a contaminated spark plug. Maybe it's a blocked injector. But at least it's running. More fault finding required, obviously.
Okay, so that is now set to be oscillating around 50% duty cycle, which is the Hertz button on my device, at operating temperature between pins 1 and 3 on that diagnostic socket. And she's running quite well. I suspect the initial misfire was probably just a wet spark plug.
So the idle's pretty good now. The other thing the old fuel distributor was doing, basically after I messed around with it last time, was and completely stalling the engine when shifting out of park into reverse or drive. Let's see if this refurbished unit is any better. No, that's freaking magnificent. Alright, it's time to go for a drive, I think. Alright, now that I'm ready to go for a drive, I'm just going to test restartability. Hopefully, it starts up nicely now that it's adjusted correctly. Yeah, it's okay. It's not fantastic, but we'll see how it goes. And ultimately, what I'm most interested in is how it cold starts, because that was never an issue. Hot starts generally weren't an issue. The only issue was when it was sitting around for ages, it was quite difficult to start because it obviously completely depressurized. We'll see if it still has that issue. And of course, the fuel pump area is leaking again because it has been played with. I don't even care if the car catches on fire, so be it, I'll just let it burn. But I want to take it for a drive and see how it actually performs now. Well, she's back. And I no longer have the issue with the loss of power above 50% throttle position. So 100% that was a contaminated fuel distributor. I just now have to deal with the fuel pump leak. I hope it's not the pump. I hope it's just the filter crush washers, because I did use Chinese crush washers. Maybe they're just a little bit crap. Anyway, at least the car's running and driving well. Problem solved, and it's running on all 6 cylinders. And interestingly, with this factory fresh EHA valve in the factory profile, the car has gone back to the way it used to accelerate before I messed around with my EHA valve. So originally it was getting like 10 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, until I gave the EHA valve one full turn in the enrichment direction, and it went down to 7 seconds. one turn of the EHA adjustment screw made that much difference with acceleration. It's back to being kind of lame, but it seems to pull harder higher up the rev range, so it might actually be alright. I'm not going to play with it because it's a brand new EHA valve. I'm just going to leave this car as is, factory spec, and the red car is going to be the one that has clearly been screwed around with a rebuilt engine and a stroker crankshaft and second oversized 3.2 pistons. So that's my toy car. This will be factory. I'm not going to hammer it, but as you can see, that's like 30% on the throttle, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the way that runs now. It is running goddamn sweet. But I tell you what, if I open up that fuel pump area and find that those recently new fuel pumps are leaking, well, I'm going to have a meltdown on par with some certain social media personalities that did not like the outcomes of what occurred this week. I'm going to lose it. I'll tell you right now, because I'm sick to death of these effing fuel pump issues. Yes, I know it's my own fault because I don't drive the car, but these ones are recently new. So let's hope it's just the crush washers that are leaking on the new fuel filter. I have plans to drive this tomorrow, so I might go home and inspect that now. And if I do, well, I'll add it to the end of this video. I think I need to get home quick because this fuel gauge seems to be going down awfully quickly. So I'm just going to floor it here and we'll see what happens. I'm not going to do the forced first gear start. We'll just rely on the kick down. That's performing fine. I think the moral of the story is she just needs some exercise. But damn, she's running well now. And I will tell you that, well, I like the performance of this fuel distributor better than the one I rebuilt myself. There's something to say about having the proper Bosch test bench and calibrating these things. This is ridiculously smooth. It's worth every dollar. So I'm not going to do this myself ever again. Yes, in a pinch you can do it and it runs okay, but god damn, this is phenomenal. And I believe that new EHA valve has completely restored the performance of this car as well. Even with the factory calibration, it's actually quite alright. I mean, obviously it's not as torquey off the go as my 3.2 and a bit upgraded red car, but for a 3 litre, naturally aspirated, it's quite alright. Very drivable in today's traffic. I'll be interested to see how the engine temperature reacts to this. I don't know that it'll make any difference, but we'll see. I mean, it's only 21 degrees today, so it's not really going to get very hot. Anyway, I'm going home now and maybe I'll have a look at what the hell is leaking back there. To my relief, it was indeed just the crush washers on the new filter. I did that pretty tight, so I'm not sure why that's leaking, so I just went ahead and gave that all I could in addition to that, and that seems to have done the trick.